I am going to talk about a tale of a tub by Jonathan Swift. Summary. In my last class, I talked about life and works of Jonathan Swift, the greatest satirist in the 18th century in England. Jonathan Swift was a great writer. His writing is satirical. No other writer in prose could write as brilliant satire as Jonathan Swift wrote. A Tale of a Tub is a brilliant satire on religion, learning, and knowledge. A Tale of a Tub has many sections. The first section is an apology. It is followed by next 11 sections, and lastly we have conclusion. Now let me talk about all the parts, all the sections of A Tale of a Tub by Jonathan Swift in brief. The first part that opens with an apology. This section defends the author against the attacks made on the tale by Barton and some other critics. This was written in 1709 and appeared in print in 5th edition in 1710. The second section is dedication to Lord Somers. This is supposed to have been written by the publisher. The author had written that the tale should be dedicated to the worthiest. He asked many writers who the worthiest person was. Each one of them said that he himself was the worthiest, but the second best was Lord Somers. So the publisher decided that the author wanted to dedicate the book to Lord Somers. Section 3. The bookseller to the reader. This is also supposed to have been written by the publisher. It describes how he got a copy of the manuscript and how he is publishing it now in 1704. Then the epistle dedicatory to His Royal Highness Princess Posterity. The author dedicates the tale of her talk to succeeding generations of readers and audience. He tells that the works of his contemporaries are not likely to be seen by them because they are of a purely ephemeral nature. The author describes, in the next part, the author describes the occasion and design of the work. He does not want to write a long preface condemning other writers. He has no taste for satire. The introduction, section 1. He describes here three oratorial machines: the pulpit, the ladder, and the stage itinerant. He describes their functions and what they stand for, what they represent to. 7. The three brothers, section 2. The allegory begins in this section. The father gives a coat to each of his three sons. They are Peter, Martin, and Jack. He tells them how to use the coats. For the first 7 years, all the three sons behave properly and keep the coats intact. Then they fall in with the fashion of the day and decorate the coats. They become corrupt and low fallen. Digression concerning critics, section 3. This section deals with digressions. Here he describes the three types of critics. Only true critics are found in modern times. Their aim is to find the faults of the writer. Such critics have flourished in all the ages, in all the time. Brother Peter becomes insufferable, section 4. Peter adopts various devices to make money. The wives of the brothers are turned out. He gives his brothers bread for mutton and wine. He becomes mad and turns the two brothers out of the house. A digression of the modern kind, section 5. The author says that he is serving the public by instructing them, educating them, and more so by diverting them. He has found many defects in Homer. The author offers a recipe for all knowledge to be acquired without any labor. Following the practice of the moderns, he praises his own book to the skies. Brothers Martin and Jack, section 6. The two brothers read their father's will and set out reforming the courts. Martin represents Church of England. Peter represents Catholic Church, and Peter represents Catholicism. Martin represents Protestantism, and Jack represents Puritanism. there are three kinds of religions of Christianity at that very time. So the two brothers named Martin and Jack read their father's will and set out reforming the courts. Martin, who represents Church of England, removes the gold lash and the silver fringe very softly. Jack, who represents dissenters, tears of these things so rudely and so roughly that the coat is torn. Jack goes mad and finds the sect of Aeolists, a digression in praise of digression, section 7. Digressions are necessary in modern times because the number of writers has increased, gone up, and the matter has remained the same. The subject matter remains the same, but the number of writers is numerous. They pretend to be learned by only reading their titles and indexes. In reality, they do not have depth of the book, depth of knowledge. They have just surface knowledge and surface reading. This digression can be placed anywhere in the book. The Aeolist and Jack, section 8. The Aeolists believe in wind or a spirit to be the origin of all things. They pretend to have divine inspiration for their preaching and teaching. Women get more easily inspired and influenced by them. They have their own God and their devil, Satan. Digression on the origin and use of madness, section 9. Great conquerors of empires and founders of new sects in philosophy and religion have all been mad, and good things come out of madmen, not good men. Fiction and delusion are more pleasant than truth and reality. Persons who appear to be mad may prove to be extremely useful for civil, military, and ecclesiastical and religious offices. A further digression, section 10. The author thanks the whole nation for the fine reception given to this divine treatise. He suggests that the most learned should make 7 commentaries on this book. Character of Jack, section 11. Jack used the Bible, the most holy book of the Christians, for every purpose. He did not say grace before meals, before taking food. He pretended to be guided by an inner light, not by religion. He acted in a whimsical and sometimes cruel manner. He hated music and painting. He asked people to kick him and then pretended that he was suffering for a noble cause. He resembled Peter, the elder brother. He had long ears. He got protection from the king and even rode the great horse. The conclusion: there is a proper season for every book to appear in print. The author says that he will be happy if his book has contributed to the repose of mankind and humankind. He wants to conclude now and he will write again when he has more matter and more theme, more subject to write on or to write about. Thus, A Tale of Her Top is a brilliant satire on religion and learning. Fortunately, Jonathan Swift wrote this book in the defense of Church of England. But this book was misunderstood and it was considered as a blistering satire, blistering criticism against Christianity. And Jonathan Swift could not get promotion in the church. Thus, this is a brilliant